Welcome to War Bios, the podcast where we delve into the intricacies of history's most pivotal conflicts. I'm your host, General Biography, and today we're going to explore one of the most decisive battles of the Italian Wars, the Battle of Pavia. This clash of arms, fought on February 24, 1525, would prove to be a turning point in European history, showcasing the evolving nature of warfare and the strategic brilliance of its commanders. As we set the stage for this epic confrontation, let's journey back to the early 16th century, when the Italian peninsula was a hotbed of political intrigue and military maneuvering. The city of Pavia, situated in the fertile plains of Lombardy, had been a prized possession for various European powers, including the French, the Spanish, and the Holy Roman Empire. Its strategic location, nestled between the Ticino River and the Po Valley, made it an essential stronghold for any power seeking to dominate the region. In the years leading up to the battle, the Italian peninsula was embroiled in a complex web of alliances and rivalries. The city-states of Milan, Venice, and Florence vied for control, while the great powers of Europe, France, Spain, and the Holy Roman Empire sought to expand their influence. The Treaty of Noyon, signed in 1516, had established a fragile peace between France and Spain, but tensions remained high. The historical context of this conflict is deeply intertwined with the complex web of alliances and rivalries that characterized European politics during the early 16th century. The Italian Wars, which spanned several decades, saw various city-states, kingdoms, and empires vying for control of the peninsula. The Battle of Pavia was a pivotal moment in this struggle, as it would ultimately determine the fate of Italy and shape the course of European history. The French monarchy, under the leadership of Francis I, had long been interested in expanding its territories in Italy. In 1521, Francis I launched a campaign to capture Milan, which was then held by the Spanish. The French army, led by the king himself, marched into Italy and laid siege to the city of Milan. However, the French were ultimately repelled by the Spanish, who were aided by the imperial forces of Charles V. The Spanish, under the leadership of Charles V, were determined to maintain their hold on Italy. In 1524, a Spanish force led by Antonio de Leyva captured the city of Pavia, which had been held by the French. The French, however, refused to give up, and Francis I launched a new campaign to retake the city. As tensions escalated, the stage was set for a dramatic confrontation between these two military giants. The city of Pavia, with its impressive Visconti castle and well-fortified walls, would become the focal point of this conflict. In the months preceding the battle, both sides engaged in a series of skirmishes and sieges, each probing the other's defenses and searching for the decisive blow. The fate of Italy, the future of European politics, and the reputations of two great monarchs hung in the balance, as the armies of France and Spain prepared to collide in a maelstrom of steel and fire. On February 24, 1525, the French army, led by King Francis I, approached the city of Pavia, determined to retake it from the Spanish forces under the command of Antonio de Leyva. The French monarch had assembled a formidable force, comprising over 20,000 soldiers, including heavily armored knights, pikemen, and arquebusiers. However, the Spanish were well entrenched within the city walls, having fortified key positions and prepared an array of defensive measures to repel the French assault. As the battle commenced, the French launched a series of frontal attacks against the Spanish lines, but these were repeatedly repelled by the defenders. The Spanish employed innovative tactics, including the use of earthworks, abatis, and chevaux de frise, to funnel the French attackers into killing zones, where they could be cut down by artillery and arquebus fire. Meanwhile, the French cavalry, weighed down by their heavy armor, struggled to maneuver in the muddy terrain, limiting their effectiveness on the battlefield. Despite being outnumbered, the Spanish forces held their ground, thanks in large part to the brilliant leadership of Antonio de Leyva. This seasoned commander had carefully studied the French tactics and had prepared his defenses accordingly. He also made effective use of his artillery, deploying cannons and culverins to devastating effect against the French formations. As the day wore on, the French began to tire, their repeated assaults having failed to breach the Spanish lines. The Spanish, on the other hand, remained resolute, buoyed by their successes and determined to hold their ground. In a final, desperate bid to turn the tide of the battle, Francis I led a charge against the Spanish positions. But this was met with a hail of gunfire and cannonballs, which shattered the French formation and sent the king fleeing for his life. The Battle of Pavia was a resounding victory for the Spanish, marking a significant turning point in the Italian wars. The French army was decimated, with over 8,000 casualties, including many high-ranking nobles and officers. Francis I taken prisoner, a humiliating blow to the French monarchy. The Spanish, on the other hand, had secured a crucial victory, cementing their control over the Italian peninsula and paving the way for the eventual dominance of the Habsburg Empire in Europe. As we reflect on this pivotal conflict, it's clear that the Battle of Pavia represented a watershed moment in military history, marking the beginning of a new era in warfare. The innovative tactics employed by the Spanish, including the use of defensive earthworks and artillery, would influence the development of military strategy for centuries to come. Moreover, the battle highlighted the importance of adaptability and flexibility on the battlefield, as well as the need for effective leadership and strategic thinking. With the Battle of Pavia decided, the fate of Italy and the future of European politics hung in the balance. The consequences of this conflict would be far-reaching, shaping the course of history in ways both subtle and profound. The Battle of Pavia marked a significant turning point in the Italian wars, as the Spanish victory cemented their control over the Italian peninsula and paved the way for the eventual dominance of the Habsburg Empire in Europe. The French army's defeat was devastating, with over 8,000 casualties, including many high-ranking nobles and officers. King Francis I himself was taken prisoner, a humiliating blow to the French monarchy that would have lasting implications for the balance of power in Europe. In the years following the Battle of Pavia, the Spanish Empire continued to consolidate its power, expanding its territories through a series of strategic marriages, alliances, and military campaigns. The Habsburgs, who had long been a dominant force in European politics, now emerged as the preeminent power on the continent, with their influence stretching from Spain to Germany, Italy, and beyond. The French monarchy, on the other hand, struggled to recover from the blow of Pavia. King Francis I was eventually released from captivity, but his reputation had been severely damaged by the defeat. The French economy also suffered significantly, as the costs of the war effort and the loss of revenue from Italian territories took their toll. It would take decades for France to fully recover from the consequences of Pavia, during which time the Spanish Empire continued to assert its dominance over European affairs. The Battle of Pavia also had a profound impact on the development of military strategy and tactics. The innovative defensive measures employed by the Spanish, including the use of earthworks, abatis, and chevaux de frise, would influence the design of fortifications and battlefields for centuries to come. The battle also highlighted the importance of adaptability and flexibility on the battlefield, as well as the need for effective leadership and strategic thinking. In addition to its military significance, the Battle of Pavia had far-reaching diplomatic consequences. The treaty that ended the war, known as the Treaty of Intricacies, marked a significant shift in the balance of power in Europe as the Spanish Empire emerged as the dominant force on the continent. The treaty also established a lasting peace between France and Spain, one that would endure for decades and shape the course of European history. As we reflect on the Battle of Pavia, it's clear that this pivotal conflict had a profound impact on the course of European history. From the rise of the Habsburg Empire to the development of modern military strategy, the consequences of this battle can still be felt today. In the words of the great historian Fernand Braudel, the Battle of Pavia was a turning point in the history of Europe, marking the beginning of a new era in which the Spanish Empire would dominate the continent. As we look back on this pivotal conflict, we're struck by the enduring relevance of Braudel's words and the ways in which the Battle of Pavia continues to influence our understanding of the world today. That's all for today's War Bios. Remember to like, share, and subscribe, and until next time, I'm General Biography reminding you to keep marching toward victory.